Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 2024. Last time we seen you, it was a whole other year. Crazy things are happening. I was talking to Randy before we got on, and we were kind of like, oh no, it's 2024. I think you were saying, Randy, just a bit about when you're a kid. Years go by slower. There's less responsibility. You grow up, and all of a sudden, you know, what was 2018 when the first Blumhouse Halloween movie came out, all of a sudden that trilogy has passed. We're talking about a new TV series with a new company, and 6 years have passed just like that. And guess what? In the blink of an eye, we're probably going to be talking about it being 2030.
Let's not wish that on us right now. The year just started.
Hey, time flies. What can I say? Time flies. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is sort of going to be a all-encompassing stream. We didn't even know first thing this morning if we would be going live or not. We didn't know if it would be the legacy of Star Wars. We didn't know if it would be Welcome to the Geek Side. And then it made sense just to sort of keep it as that fandom show, and which is a show we do every other Monday, although today is Tuesday. Hopefully everybody had a fantastic Christmas, safe and happy New Year. And right off the top, I want to get this out of the way now before I don't have an opportunity to address it. It might be a little bit before we see Ryan back on the channel. Him and his family just went through a just terribly tragic loss over the holiday season, and not going to get into any other details than that, but that our thoughts are with Ryan and his family during this time, and when the timing is right, he will be back. And until then, we wish Ryan and his family all the best. Now, that aside, Randy, we got some things to talk about. And next week, when the Legacy of Star Wars returns, we are going to be watching what most people, I think, regard as the best Star Wars movie ever made, The Empire Strikes Back. Are you excited for it? When's the last time you watched it? What did you think of the first watch-along? We'll start there.
So, obviously, because of the holiday season, what happens is, whether it's TNT, TBS, somebody is usually playing the trilogy. I know, like yesterday, I actually watched Return of the Jedi because it was on. But usually, if there's a Star Wars marathon on, my wife always has it on, so it's perfect. I get to sit there and watch it. I think it was probably a couple weeks ago. But, yeah, I'm always excited to watch that movie because there's always little things you kind of pick up on every watch too. There's always that little something that you may have missed the first time, even though I've seen it so many times growing up. It's just one of those experiences where there's still that wonder and awe of some of the scenes of just going, man, considering when this was made, what they were able to accomplish. And it's a masterpiece. As for the last watch along, I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought we had some very interesting commentary, and we had some really good points on some of the things that were actually, done in that movie, but also how they, as we were talking about how things were tied in once Disney took over. So I think that's, I think these are going to be really fun, especially going forward when we get to some of the newer ones, so we can actually pick them apart and be like, yes, this is how they tied this into A New Hope or Empire or Jedi, or this is how you have a callback to the prequel trilogies, things like that. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, again, if you're just joining us, we previously did a watch-along or a watch party or a commentary, whatever you want to call it, of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope in December. And I think the plan is... I don't know if there'll always be movies, but I think we're going to end up doing one of these a month throughout 2024. And January's movies, The Empire Strikes Back. And I love the old art there. And I'm thrilled. I haven't seen this movie in probably about a year, which is unfortunate because I've really had the itch to watch it lately, and like really had the itch to watch it over the holidays, and decided no, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to save it for the watch along. So I'm excited. Again, next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be watching The Empire Strikes Back, talking Star Wars, snacking away, and doing whatever else comes to topic that night. Without further ado, though, let's get into our topics of this evening. And if you're just tuning in, the topics for this evening are the Halloween TV series. I have my own personal suggestion on in my opinion, a point of view that they should use for their TV series and how it can differ from what we've gotten in the past. We're going to talk a little bit about Jedi Survivor. I finally got my hands on that. I believe Randy's played that. We have WWE talk. The Rock's in the thumbnail. That should get spicy. I don't know if anybody else will be joining us during that discussion, but if not, then Randy and I have a lot of time to talk, and I think we have a lot of things to say about those topics and Star Wars Outlaws and a few other things that we'll get to on this show tonight. Without further ado, though, let's dive into this Halloween thing. And Happy New Year to you too, Joel, from all of us here at the channel. So I got thinking to myself, it almost doesn't matter if they come back with this TV series, and even if it's just like something really good that is a lot like a previous movie. Maybe they go back and go for the total feel of Halloween 1978 with the whole film's filled with the blue lighting and just has that sort of indie in the shadows feel where they're not showing you too much and it's a theater of the mind thing. And that's cool and all. And I think people would love that. But I think personally, one of the things you almost have to do by relaunching the series this soon after 3 previous movies is to do something different. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean nothing with Michael Myers. I think it can absolutely include Michael Myers and absolutely should include Michael Myers. But I think the way that you tell a story that involves his character should be different. Instead of focusing on Michael Myers and his story and what happened in 1963 or in 1978, like even think back to the first movie, Randy, in Halloween 78. Yeah, people can say, well, the story really, revolves around Laurie. And to some extent it does. And, we learned in Halloween 2 that they're siblings, which was not the original intended direction. But the first thing that we see on screen is Michael Myers in 1963 walking into the house and, butchering Judith. That's the first thing we see. We see that before we ever get a glimpse of Laurie Strode. So yes, the narrative, surrounds the character of Laurie Strode, and she's kind of, who the story is being told through. It's still very much focused around Michael Myers. You're seeing the killer before he's in his prime, even, way back on the night of 63 when he kills Judith. I think, just my opinion, you need to not just create one interesting protagonist. You need to create multiple new interesting protagonists that don't have the names Loomis or Laurie attached to them. Just completely new characters. Tell us a story about those characters and the people in their lives and, interesting family dynamics there. And then you insert the beast into their story. And while the viewer is going to know, hey, it's Halloween, it's Michael Myers, the story that plays out on screen doesn't have to have all this, Michael Myers lore and weight attached to it. It can stand on its own, live on its own. And then we're not just watching a TV series for Michael Myers. At that point, we're watching a TV series because, maybe Dexter and his brother James and his sister Trina or something. Just a family, just a community, if you will. I think if you can build characters that are relatable, interesting, and don't come across stale and dry on screen, then when those characters are killed off or in moments where they could be killed off, we will feel more. And it also allows you to have these stories, have Michael Myers be a part of them, but not have to have him front and center until towards the end. Doesn't mean that he can't pop up and we see him in the shadow, the odd kill here or there where they don't show much. But like, I like the idea of Michael Myers going back to being the shape. Let's focus on everyone else, and the guy that's taking away members of this community, this family, is just some shape in the shadows. What are your thoughts on that idea? Feel free to be critical. And if you have your own, feel free to share them.
Well, it's interesting you bring up that idea because I was thinking to myself, if we're getting a TV series, something that would be actually interesting is the slow burn idea. The idea of setting up specific characters. And let's just say it's not Halloween at the beginning of the series. It's a week, 2 weeks. You have the legend of the shape out there and people telling their versions of it as we get to know these characters and watch them grow and develop. But then, like you were saying, we see little hints here and there of the shape. Let's not go Michael here. We'll go the shape, like you suggested. Just little hints here and there of him just stalking these people, but not making himself known, just doing exactly what we saw him do with Laurie, but stretch it out. So yes, we would get your odd kills here and there of just characters you don't care about, because that way you're going to still get your body count, because that's something people always expect out of Halloween is death. So I like the idea. I like your idea a lot, because honestly, that's what I was thinking too. But also thinking about, I like the idea of going back and paying homage to the original movie by giving us those shadows, giving us those little corners of the world that you can't see, but you can tell something's there. Something just feels off. And if you can build the tension that way, it would have the kills themselves would just have more meaning, more impact. And if you're developing the characters throughout the entire series as you're leading up to Halloween itself, eventually, you grow attached to the characters and keep them guessing. You don't know who's going to survive. So, I like your idea a lot, to be perfectly honest.
So, and like, I literally just came up with this as you were talking, you brought up the idea of, beginning a TV series, whether it was a standalone season or something that runs on a couple weeks out before Halloween. Well, what does everybody do that, like, anybody who's overly invested in Halloween goes out, buys all sorts of decorations and animatronics and you name it. The month, even that 4 to 6 week period leading up to Halloween is like, for a lot of people that are like that, it's like Christmas. It's like, soaking it all in the time of year. And for me, I think you take a family and we follow them, 4 weeks out. And there's obviously got to be some hints to Michael. There's got to be some hints to trouble. It can't just be a family drama for the first 3 episodes. So I don't really have anything there. But if the family is so invested in the holiday of Halloween, maybe it's building up to like a wedding on Halloween night, and we have our first, Halloween wedding situation. What worse occasion could there be for Michael to ruin than everybody's waiting for the bride to come down? Just the bride and the bride's father never come, and just all hell breaks loose. And continues on from there. Again, that's just me winging it off the top of my head, but I really think if you're going to pull a TV series off with Michael, then Michael needs to be the shape. Michael Myers cannot be the guy that everybody points to as the famous boogeyman who, if you don't lock your door at night, he's going to come get you. because he's been out on 7 or 8 different Halloween nights or 3 different Halloween nights or whatever. I think for the most part, other than whatever might have set him off as a kid, like that should be it. This should be the first. Hey, he's the shape. That way, there's an angle from it, like an authority angle, where you now have investigators and police involved, and it's not just, well, it must be Michael Myers. It's not a given like that, right? Again, to the viewer, we're going to know it's Michael. And then you can also mess around with the possibility, well, isn't Michael? Maybe it's bait and switch, and Michael's involved somehow, but you don't necessarily know what kills he's making until he reveals himself. There's just so many different things you can do, but to me, it doesn't necessarily depend on Michael Myers. To some extent, it does, but it depends on your ability to market and write other relatable, interesting characters. And dare I say, I don't know if they've done the best job of that in the Halloween series over time. So we'll wait and see. But like that's where I would go, Randy. I think the most important thing here, if you're doing a TV series, it's not Season of the Witch, and you want Michael to be involved, is I think Michael needs to start off as the shape, not the Halloween legend that everybody knows.
Yeah, I can go with that. Just because you never know. I mean, it's one of those things where even if just as an urban legend, like a myth, just not, you don't know, you can't quite place, who it is, what it is, if you have just one or two people that are just, doing well, there's this legend of blah, 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 but they don't have a name. They don't have a name for the shape. It's just, well, I heard this, but then it's just like you can disprove it down the line, but it's just like you can have these little callbacks, these little hints here and there that would, for fan service purposes, as long as it's done right, it has to be done right and done well, because if you're just throwing it out there for the sake of throwing it out there, it's just not going to work. But I feel like going to slow burn, giving us hints of Michael, or the shape in this case, just little bits here and there, nothing overly flashy. And then as with the ultimate crescendo of Halloween itself, Halloween night, all hell breaks loose, like you said. I like the idea of the whole wedding thing, because we've never seen anything like that before. That'd be actually really cool, because in any movie, I've never seen that in even a horror movie. I can't even think of off the top of my head.
Right? I'd love to steal credit for it, but I stole the idea from Smallville. So,
I see. That's why I said horror movie, but
yeah. I just think it'd be interesting, right? Especially like if the bride is like one of the first ones to go, and you're on like episode 4 of 8 or something, and you've spent the 3 previous episodes being invested in this character, and you care about her and her friends and her family and her husband to be, and all of a sudden she's dead and people are mortified, and it's everybody's a suspect, and it becomes almost kind of like a whodunit, but the audience knows who did it, but the people in the movie, we don't necessarily know. Or the TV series, sorry, Force of Habit.
No, I agree. I think that's a good way to play it off, just because because with the TV series, you're trying to introduce Halloween to a generation of people who may have not watched any of the movies or anything like that. So if you can get people invested in the TV series and get them to just sit down, even it's like 45 minutes, because some people like movies, some of them are too long. Even I can't sit down. Oh, that looks boring. But if you can really package it well when it comes to advertising and just setting the mood, setting the scene, and getting people invested that way, you might have a whole new generation of just fans of Michael Myers through that, or in this case, the shape. But ultimately, it's just, I really hope they just take their time with it. Go give us something that builds up to something amazing, rather than episode 1, kill, 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 kill. Because that's just going to be, okay, then what good is that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I guess my other suggestion, like if you really wanted to make things interesting, is if you have the budget to make it a period piece. I'm not saying like go back to the 70s necessarily, but even go back to like the mid 90s, early 2000s, where cell phones aren't smartphones, and maybe they're not super common, and just anything that makes the whole investigation and finding things out a little trickier than everything in the palm of your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that technology can ruin a film that way. Um, I feel that if you really want to grasp just the feel of the movie itself, you kind of have to take it back just a little bit, especially enough to where, like you said, cell phones aren't prevalent, and by doing that, you're making it feel like I don't know. I guess the best way to describe it, what we're trying to do is just make it feel like, people are in danger a little bit more instead of, oh, look, here's my cell phone. Let me dial 911 while I'm stuck in this corner. Um, so I feel like it raises the danger level. And I think that is a good way to help build intensity, build tension, and get people more invested in characters that way.
This has inspired me. Maybe I will follow this pitch a little further and just create like a little fun outline and do something on the channel with Dean and Tonight in Haddonfield with it, and see what happens. Dean said he's sold if it's set in the early mid 90s. Back when he grew up, Halloween was a big holiday. Houses were decorated all up and down the streets of his area. People were festive. Halloween was fun. I agree. I think you take out a good chunk of the technology element, and we focus on the Halloween holiday, but we don't go too far back in time to where you're going to have to balloon the budget to make it look real. I think there's a sweet spot in there, and I like it. But again, I think any success for any new Halloween TV series, even if it was Season of the Witch, is going to be new, interesting, relatable characters, not just Michael Myers. But yeah. Anywho, let's move on, dude. Bespin Bulletin put out today that it appears the Star Wars Outlaws has been officially delayed, and the belief was going to be it was going to get delayed until 2025, and who knows when in 25 it would have came out, but it sounds like they are gun-ho and gunning for some sort of holiday 2024 release. This excites me for a couple of reasons, selfishly, but also has me somewhat concerned because we've talked about it on this channel at length, whether it's Tonight in Haddonfield, whether it's the Legacy of Star Wars or Welcome to the Geek Side. One of my big things is I think that you should take the time to do something right instead of rush something out. And that's a lesson hard learned. What do you think here, Randy? Outlaws is apparently still gunning for a 2024 release here. Are you worried? Are you excited? Where do you fall here?
So obviously, the Star Wars fan in me is like elated, going, "Oh my god, I can actually play this at the end of the year." But then, of course, there's that part of me going, "Wait a minute. I thought we were going to take our time with this. I thought that's kind of why they pushed it to potentially 2025, to ensure that all the bugs are worked out and that everything is going to work as intended, rather than rushing it out, going, oh, we'll just patch it along the way." It's always frustrating in the gaming industry now, just because a lot of companies are going for the almighty dollar, and they'll hype the hell out of something, and then it falls short of everybody's expectations. Take the new Call of Duty game. The sales and the player retention is at its lowest it's ever been, all because they rushed out essentially a glorified DLC, put $70 price tag on it, and then you had one of the parent company developers with Infinity Ward mess with Sledgehammer Games and just kind of roadblock them on so many different things they were trying to do. You cannot have that and expect to be successful. It's only going to happen. You're only going to have so many people go for it for so long before they just get tired of the same old shit. And that's the problem now with a lot of AAA titles. A lot of these games just get rushed. A lot of the indie developers are doing it right. They're doing early access. They're getting feedback from the fans, and they're making changes as they go along before they put it in, before they actually have a full release, before it hits that 1.0. And by that time, it may be 2, 3, 4 years, but you know what? It's a polished game and it's ready to go and ends up being successful.
Yeah, I want to be real excited for this. I just I'm worried. Also on the Outlaws front, someone, I forget who, but someone pointed out how much more hype would be behind Outlaws if we weren't, and I don't want to get into the whole, forced to be a female character necessarily, but forced to be any set character. Why can't we have, two or, if we're not creating our own character from scratch and really customize it, why not have, 2 to 4 different female characters you can choose from and 2 to 4 different male characters that you can choose from, just so that there's a little bit more personalization to it. I know that obviously makes the production of a game much harder and less streamlined. But I do think that new Star Wars games aren't necessarily allowing players to create their own stories anymore, and they're more pointed into, we're playing their stories, which is fine. Video games have been like that for a long time, but I think we're far past time to get a new Star Wars game where we're sort of the director, if you will. We're crafting and creating the story, and I know that's apparently coming with Star Wars Eclipse if it ever sees the light of day, but like, that's a long way off. I want to be able to, craft a Star Wars story prior to that.
Yeah, I can understand that. Don't get me wrong. Like with Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order and all that stuff. It's like I enjoy the character of Cal Kestis, but it would have, and I do like the fact that I get to customize the lightsaber and customize how he looks and customize how BD1 looks. But you're right. I think it would have been. I think I would have been sucked in even more if it could have been some random character that I created, gave him a name, and had to make all the dialogue choices. I mean, obviously we get that. We got that with. I think that's the problem. We got that with KOTOR back in the day. Even though he ended up being Revan, it was your character. You created it, and it was your decisions that helped the story move along. And I think, but the problem is with games nowadays is the fact that everything's got to be action oriented. Some of them have some really good stories to it, but some of them are so action heavy that the story gets lost, and there's really no time to develop that type of character that you're looking for.
I'm still excited for the game. It just feels like something that could have had the potential of like to be a 10 instead of a 7.
Yeah.
So, I'll hold out hope that we'll once again get to craft our own Star Wars story in the not too distant future. But I'm still excited for what this game brings and what it could be. I think there's a lot of technology things that we'll see in this game that we haven't seen before in Star Wars games. So that excites me too. Which brings me to this, man. I finally got an opportunity to play Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And I have not played very much of it, 2 different sessions, maybe a total of anywhere from 35 to 40 minutes in total, not each. And I have to say, I was pretty critical of Jedi Fallen Order when it came out. I didn't necessarily like the way the character moved. Didn't necessarily like the lightsaber combat. The story was okay, it wasn't terrible, but it just kind of felt like it was being the Force Unleashed light to me, the first game. And again, only playing, 30 to 40 minutes of the second game, keeping in mind we're talking about a whole different generation of console that the game is for. And I know that when the game first launched, it got criticized a lot because there was all sorts of frame rate issues and things that just weren't going well. But I got to tell you, man, in the brief time that I spent playing this game, I was pretty blown away by the presentation, the way the character handles, the very minor but very detailed changes in the lightsaber combat. The game, at least mine, was running fine in terms of frame rate. It looked beautiful. It looked fantastic. This was another one of those cases we were talking off here, but the Spider-Man deal. I wish I hadn't already watched the cutscene movie to this game, because at least story-wise, I'd be even more into it. But I was pretty blown away by Jedi Survivor. Again, very, very initial impressions, but pretty blown away by Jedi Survivor on the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely put some time into it. I'm probably not far in the story because I'm that person that has to explore and try to get every little thing, even though technically I'm probably not supposed to be able to because I can come back to the planet when I'm stronger with all these other new abilities. But that's just me trying to complete every little thing that I can. But I've enjoyed the combat a little bit more. The game is still difficult at times because sometimes what they'll do is they will try to overwhelm you versus it's rather than ramping up the difficulty, they'll try to overwhelm you. And that I'm just like, I've seen that in too many games where, look, if you want to ramp up the difficulty, that's fine. But don't just sit there and send an endless horde of enemies at me and think I'm just going to be all happy about the fact that I got to keep on trying to do it over and over again because I'm just outmatched and outnumbered. That's basically my biggest gripe with the game so far because it does happen at times. Or just overpowered creatures that you're not really expecting to be overpowered. That happens too. But the look of the game, the sound design, the feel of it, it's definitely a step up from Fallen Order. I love the fact that you don't have to reacquire all your Force abilities. At this point, you're just enhancing stuff. As the story goes along, different lightsaber options become available. It's, and there's some really good, interesting story notes that add to the lore of Star Wars that, piques my interest and actually makes me want to go and read some of the novels now that I've ignored just because I didn't think I'd actually get into that specific time era, that time frame of Star Wars. And I'm really curious to see how they finish out because I think there's a third one they're starting to work on now, and I'm curious to see how it finishes up. Oh yeah, but I'm really curious to see how many years forward they are, who he runs into, things like that, just to kind of get an idea of how far the characters come. Because when you think about Fallen Order, I mean, he's just a wet behind the ears Padawan who never completed his training and had to reestablish his connection to the Force, essentially, so that he actually remembered all the abilities he actually once knew. And of course, some of the boss battles, I just pulled my hair out in that game, especially Vader and the Night Sister and the fight in the Night Sister. Jeez, that was not a fun battle. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see where they go with this. I think you're really going to enjoy just the scenery because like you said, you've watched all these cutscenes. You've watched the cutscenes, so you have an idea of the story. But now you get to experience just the lushness of the environment that they had and that they've created, and the sound design and the different types of creatures that you didn't see in your cutscenes that you're going to get to witness firsthand here. And I think you really find a good appreciation for it, even though you know the story.
Yeah, I hope so. So far, I don't have many complaints, but I totally understand where you can get overwhelmed with a game where it's just them sending onslaughts of hordes at you. That becomes a bit much. I know that the practical thing is they'd probably go back and do something a few years after Jedi Survivor. But I'd love to see them like really switch it up and be like, okay, well, guess what? Part 3 is, at the end of the original trilogy or caught up to the Mando timeline or something. Like, let's take a real big time jump.
That would actually be really cool to know that he survived that long. Given the fact
There's
that
all sorts of novel possibilities or other game
right.
possibilities to go back and do in between as well.
Well, and it gives them a chance to bring him in live action since, I mean, he's a good actor in general. A lot of the stuff I've seen him in, he's been really good in. So I can see him doing really well, bringing Cal Kestis to life on a small screen at least.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it, man. So I'm hoping that will continue, which leads me to just a brief conversation I wanted to have on the PS5 in general. Uh, have you played an Xbox Series X?
I have actually, I may have just hanging out with one of my friends, but for the most part, no. I mean, I do have an Xbox, but I have previous gen. So I mean, I had the 360, then I had, you know, the Xbox One, and then that was it. And then eventually I got my Switch, and then, but with all these certain games that were PlayStation only that I absolutely wanted to play, so Star Wars and Spider-Man and things like that, I had to go the route of the PS5. And if I get get the newer Xbox, so be it. I'm not going to worry too much about it.
What are your impressions on the PS5? Like it, don't like it, in between?
I mean, so far I have, not a ton of complaints. I think the biggest one for me is just the lack of hard drive size, and the fact that you would have that, even though if you get an external, the only thing you can do with your external is store stuff on there. You can't play it from the external like you could with the PS4. The PS4 allowed you to actually store stuff on the external and then play games from the external rather than having to worry about loading up your hard drive on the console itself. PS5 did not do that. You actually have to go and because I think you can actually go and buy an internal hard drive and install it into the PS5, a bigger one. And that's a lot of money, and it's a big hassle just to get yourself more space.
Yeah, I really wish they'd offer you more space at launch. Give us something a little friendlier. I like visually, Spider-Man. In my opinion, visually, the PS5 so far has been a step up from the Xbox Series X. People might think I'm nuts. I'm just telling you what I think. Playing Spider-Man 2, Jedi Survivor. I've watched Jade play a little bit of Hogwarts, especially Hogwarts. Actually, watching just the environments around her character was just fucking mind blowing. And it's like, yeah, we weren't getting that type of graphic quality on the Xbox Series X. And then I played a couple of games of hockey, and I thought the controller was friggin' broken. I'm trying to like pass the puck out of the zone, and it's like becoming harder to press down the right trigger. And I'm like, well, what the hell? I'm looking at it and can't figure it out. And I get like halfway through a period, and it hits me what's going on. So in previous NHL games, there hasn't been like a fatigue bar for each player. In this one, there is. But when your player gets tired, he has just a hard time doing a lot of things. So wearing the other team down is like a big thing in this NHL game. So if your player's exhausted and needs off, it's harder to press down the pass button to make a pass. There's some sort of technology in the PlayStation 5 controller that prevents you from just like pushing it down normally with no resistance. There becomes a lot of resistance, and that's why I thought the controller was broken. And it just kind of blew my mind because, like, now you're talking about a digital game having physical effects on your ability to play it the way you want to if you're not, keeping up with your line changes and shit. And for me, that was pretty mind blowing. That's a huge step, in my opinion, in gaming.
Well, I mean, I've noticed that with Call of Duty. I have like if you're sniping, you can feel yourself squeeze the trigger, not just pull away and just fire off like you normally would, but you can feel it catch a little bit, like it's forcing you to go ahead and just kind of slowly squeeze the trigger to fire your shot at times. You can now there, from what I understand, there you can have that turned off. There is a setting in there to turn that off on the controller, so you don't have to worry about having that issue. But it adds a new layer to gameplay in general when that happens because you're not expecting it. So it's kind of, I mean, it's neat and really curious to see where things go. I know my friend's got the PSVR 2. I'm really curious to see what they do with that. He tells me he got
Any
the Star
idea
Wars.
what's even out for that right now?
Say that again.
Do you know what's out for that right now? Anyway, like
There's for the PSVR 2. I know there's a like a, I would say it's one of the Horizon games. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head because it's not like, Zero Dawn or Forbidden West or anything like that. But there is a VR game for that. There's a Star Wars game they launched with that they have. And I think it's based around Galaxy's Edge. So I'll be curious about that. But they don't have a ton out just yet. I do know that I'm seeing like new games coming up here and there. Like I'm trying to think, it's called Arizona Sunshine 2. I think that's what it's called. It's a zombie shooter. That's for the PSVR 2 that's coming out soon. I will say I really hope the developers of Walking Dead Saints and Sinners does another one, because that game on the PSVR, which I do have for the PS4, was intense and wild and crazy and so well done. I really hope that that developer does another Walking Dead game and just kind of ups the ante a little bit, because they did such a good job with that. I couldn't believe how responsive the VR controls were. That was so much fun. And I also hope at some point they give us kind of like I wouldn't say an upgrade, but I guess an upgraded version of Vader Immortal. Now that was probably one of the most fun games I've actually played on the PSVR.
That's awesome. I seen Vader Immortal on the store the other day, and I thought to myself, can you actually play this without VR with the controller? Or?
I wish you could, but and the thing is I played through the story. I beat the story, but honestly, I do the Jedi lightsaber dojo more than anything, just because literally you're just standing there in VR with a lightsaber, deflecting blaster bolts, using the Force to crush things. It's so much fun, and I just wish that, like I said, I kind of hope they kind of give that a revamp to it and put it on the PS5 for the PSVR 2, because I would buy that in a heartbeat.
I just wanted to pull this up. I didn't see this earlier. Apparently, Variety has a new article on the new Rey movie. Just skim through it here real quick. Not too much is known about Ridley's Star Wars return, which will pick up with Rey following the events of 2019's The Rise of Skywalker. Boo. Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy said at last year's Star Wars celebration that Ridley's new film will follow Rey as she builds a new Jedi Order. The executive teased a bit more about the plot in an interview with IGN by revealing to Star Wars fans it will pick up with Rey well over a decade after The Rise of Skywalker. We're 15 years out from Rise of Skywalker, so we're post-war, post-First Order, and the Jedi are in disarray. So that means the Jedi have already come back. It's not like she's just getting the Jedi Order up with her first student or two. There is already a Jedi Order 15 years later. Obviously, we're not talking a Jedi Order the size of, the prequel trilogy. We're probably talking, Luke's Jedi Order and Legends in the very early days, where, you're talking there might be 15 or 20 of them or something like that. But apparently, the Jedi are in disarray. There's a lot of discussion around who are the Jedi, what are they doing, what is the state of the galaxy. She's attempting to rebuild the Jedi Order based on the books, based on what she's promised Luke. So that's where we're going. When asked if Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker could be involved in the film via flashbacks or as a Force ghost, Kathleen Kennedy answered, I don't know if we'll spend a lot of time in flashbacks or on Force ghosts or things like that, but certainly the spirit of what he represents to her is going to be significant. That sounds like, to me, they're downplaying Mark Hamill involvement. And I got to be honest, I've said all along, I don't know how eager he is to come back to that time period of Star Wars again. But that was a cool little piece. I didn't even know it was out there. Any thoughts on any of that, man?
I'm obviously new Star Wars content. I'm always excited about in general. So I'll obviously, when the movie does come out, I'll give it a shot. Um, as far as, but I'll be honest. How can you have a Star Wars movie without a Force ghost? Because because when you think about the canon, when you think about all the Jedi that actually know how to be present as a Force ghost, there's a lot of potential there. So, and it doesn't have to be Luke that's helping her. It could be somebody else. Could be Yoda, for all we know. So
I think
it's
there's
what
going to be the opportunity for those guys in it. Like,
yeah,
I think that was to keep the hype of a Mark Hamill reappearance. Mark has really started to speak out against AI use, and
I don't blame him.
he, even though he was involved with what they did in the Mandalorian season 2 and Book of Boba Fett, fairly more heavy than people think. It sounds like he's had second thoughts on wanting to do that sort of thing. Not to say we're never going to see him again as Luke, because I think we will. But like I think there's all sorts of opportunity to have Hayden have more time, to have Ewan have more time, to do
Agreed.
something with Yoda. Like there are those other Ahsoka, even significant Jedi out there that you can rely on. Hell, Ahsoka could be in the bloody movie. That
Yeah,
could be
very
the
true.
elderly Jedi.
Very true. I mean, Filoni's gone on and saying this that he's not going to say whether she's who says she's dead. So and because I know we talked about that with Rise of Skywalker, it's like you hear her voice, but there's nothing saying that she's dead. She hears the call out, and she offers her words of wisdom.
And where's Ezra at that point too, right? Like I'm not saying all these people are
Mm-hmm.
in it, but like if he's still alive, might make sense for him to have involvement in that Jedi Order. So
Well, it's potentially Sabine too, depending on what happens with Filoni's movie.
yeah, for sure. That's why I think there are loose ways anyway. These movies are going to end up connecting. I don't think it's going to be straight. This is a follow up to this story sort of thing, but some similar ties like that. All right, let's talk about it, man. The Rock says, sorry, one second, Randy.
All right.
I'm like, who is snoring? The Rock says that he doesn't want to sit at the bar or on a stool, but he wants to sit at the head of the table. This isn't something that was mentioned, in an ESPN piece or in a podcast interview. It was mentioned on air Monday Night Raw. And the insinuation seems to be we might be getting Rock versus Roman at Mania. I know there's a lot of people right now being like, well, no, they'll do it at Elimination Chamber. They're going to do it at an Elimination Chamber because it's at a stadium. And I got to tell you, if it's happening, it's not going to be at Elimination Chamber. I could be wrong, but I would take that bet with a lot of people that if it's happening, and I'm guessing it is, given what was said last night, that it is happening at WrestleMania. Randy, your thoughts just on, I don't know if you want to talk about the promo in general last night. It didn't really do much for me. But your thoughts in general of The Rock seemingly very publicly setting his eyes on Roman Reigns despite everybody wanting Cody to finish the story.
As much as I enjoy seeing The Rock on TV, and I mean, I got a laugh out of some of the stuff he says because The Rock is entertaining, and that's something that he's always been. Once he finally got past Rocky Maivia and finally became The Rock, he's always been entertaining in that respect, and he's always been a good promo. I mean, he got the crowd into it. It was a good time. Jinder Mahal got what he deserves. But it's just, I'm not sure I'm ready to just let The Rock come in and take over and basically get Roman at Mania, because the winner of the Royal Rumble is supposed to get a title match against opponent they're choosing at WrestleMania. Same with Elimination Chamber. You pretty much, that person, whoever wins that, usually gets the other title shot. So to have him come in and with the potential of taking over one of the main events for night 1 or night 2, and taking the potential for Cody Roman 2 out of there, I don't know. Is it exciting? Yes. Just because it's The Rock. He's always puts on a good show. He always is entertaining. He always gives the fans what they want. But when you also look at the storylines they were telling leading up to this, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. This is something they wanted to do for a while now. They've wanted to have Rock versus Roman. The whole head of the table thing. Obviously, from a storyline perspective, I get it. The problem is if Roman has the title, I don't see how The Rock has a chance of winning. I feel like if it's just Roman, Rock, title not there, it's just those two going at it, I feel like they can have a more compelling story, a more compelling match. Maybe actually adhere to some of the rules that they've set before that they clearly ignored. I'm talking about Jay versus Roman for head of the table. When it was supposed to be just no interference, nobody around, just those two going at it, and they just didn't do it. So I don't know. It's exciting, but it's also frustrating because I felt like they missed a huge opportunity last year with Cody and Roman, to give Cody being hotter than he'd ever been, more over than he'd ever been, and they pissed it away. And that, and the fact that now he's trying to have the comeback trail and get back on top and go back after it, and then here comes The Rock, and it's like, I just don't. It's just kind of, like I said, it's frustrating to me. But hey, I'm also not the one writing the storylines. I'm not the one putting these guys out there and saying this is what you need to do. So maybe they got something planned that I haven't even thought about yet.
Yeah, I mean, from a match perspective and match quality, frankly, I think I'd rather see Cody versus Roman 2. I just don't know if people would like who I would want to go over in that. But I don't know, man. And I know there's people going, well, The Rock was winded last night. How's he going to be ready for a match, whether it be an Elimination Chamber or Mania? I'm like, well, if you listen to any of the promo, the dude was very clearly sick. And when you're sick, very easy to overexert yourself. And I'm not saying he's in ring shape. He's obviously not in ring shape. But anybody that doesn't think he can get ready for some sort of 20-minute match in that amount of time, I think is nuts. I think he can absolutely do it. It's how you tell the story in the right. I think in terms of for story, the way I would book it is the way that I still think, I mean, or at least the way I thought it was going to go down before yesterday, is night 2 is Roman versus Cody. And night one is Punk versus Seth. I think that's the best you're going to get story-wise going into Mania.
Oh, I agree.
But I also think WrestleMania 40, it's the 40-year anniversary. I think there's a real distinct possibility, man, that you might get Roman versus Rock night 2 and Punk versus Austin night 1. And that makes me wonder if we go back to Cody versus Seth.
I mean, has there been any movement with Austin, or is it still just hinted at?
I don't know, man.
Because I still feel like it's still going to be pushing for Punk and Seth. So
I'm just saying I could see WWE want to do the big marketing splash, the big, hey, these aren't going to be the best matches, but in terms of the biggest numbers that it does and sponsors and all other revenue streams that they go through with WrestleMania, the ability to say we have Punk versus Austin and Rock versus Roman, to me, undoubtedly makes it the biggest WrestleMania of all time. Even if the matches aren't the best, it's a spectacle. It's an event. It's not the thing I want the most. I really want to see a dirty, gritty Punk versus Seth match that reminds me of Brett versus Austin from WrestleMania 13. That's what I want. But it really feels like I do think there's a level of this that is Endeavor going, hey, this is our first WrestleMania. We're making all these big plays, all these big moves. Let's make sure that when people talk about the first WrestleMania that we ever did in new ownership, that people truly never, ever forget it for the right reasons.
Well, yeah, that's kind of all you really could hope for, really. Obviously, we've had some moments over the years that, yeah, you don't forget them for other reasons. Obviously, Vince taking a very horrible stunner being one moment that I'm never going to forget because it just looked god awful. After Austin and KO had a fairly decent match, I was pretty impressed with it. But yeah, I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from with that. The question is how, what other high profile legends or people do you try to bring in? Obviously, you're not going to get Mercedes Moné back, so because clearly she's pretty much a breath away from signing with AEW. So you're not getting Sasha back, which would have been huge for them. It'd have been a huge boost for their women's division, and really give them new, fresh storylines they could have gone with. Especially now that Charlotte's on the, going to be out for a while.
Arthur sends in a very generous $20 super chat saying, Sean, I keep waiting for Kramer to pop out. Hope you all have a good night and a new year. You too, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate the support. Hope you keep tuning in. It has been a good night and a good new year so far. We got a cold going around the house, which sucks, but other than that, there's not much else I could ask for that's different in terms of how it started. In terms of back to the wrestling, though, man, there's just so many different ways this can go, right? Like, I still think more than likely Punk and Seth is set. And I do think it's going to be Punk and Seth for Seth's title, because I think the title needs that match more than that match needs the title. And I think that
so
I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
So say we go with this, since we're looking at potentially Rock Roman at WrestleMania. To set it up, do we go with Punk winning the Rumble then and picking Seth? Because I don't think Punk's never won that I can remember, so it would be a new accolade for him. And considering how over he is and how much of a merch seller he is, it would, obviously that would help, especially going, okay, it's Punk and Seth for the title at Mania. Now, chances are I would think Punk wouldn't win it. That's not to say that they may not pull the trigger anyway, just because, maybe give Seth some time off or something. I don't know.
I mean, I want Punk to win the Rumble, but I think if you said to me you can place your money only on one person to win the Rumble, I don't think I put my money on Punk. I think he'll be there at the end. I think he'll be one of the last 4 or 5 guys in the ring. I think there's a real chance they might start him 1 or 2, which I think is just a bad idea. But I think there's a real chance to get that pop and give him basically give him, hey, this is what your other Rumble was supposed to be before you got concussed in it. Even though he wasn't supposed to win that one. Yeah, I mean, I want him to win. I just don't know if it's going to happen, man. I don't know how that, the new guy, the new old guy comes in and is just handed the Royal Rumble. Maybe he doesn't go over in Mania and just wins the Royal Rumble. Again, I want him to win. I'd pop big. I think it'd be huge. I think it'd be great for his on-character ego as well to be able to go, I just walked right back in here. Supposedly the most hated man in the industry, and won the Royal Rumble. I think it'd be great for his character. I don't know if they're going to do it, but I'm pretty sure, again, unless the Austin thing happens, and I wouldn't rule it out. Here, let's go with this, man. Let's have some fun with this. Unless you got to go right now, I can.
No.
Let's have some fun with this. So, out of 100, so for example, if I said, what would you rate the chances of Roman versus Cody versus or Roman versus Rock, and you said 75 Rock, 25 Cody, means 75% chance he ends up going up against The Rock versus 25% Cody. What would your number be for that? And what would your number be for Punk versus Seth being for the title or no title?
So, as far as the idea of Roman and Rock or Roman and Cody, right now I'm going to say it's 50-50 because we haven't heard Roman's rebuttal yet. We haven't heard, obviously we know Cody's dealing with Shinsuke, so obviously that's going on right now. But until we kind of see where Roman's head is with it and we see more of The Rock, I think that's another thing. We would need to see more of him as we're gearing up for that sort of thing. Then I think the more we see of The Rock, I think it becomes more likely. But right now I still say it's 50-50 just because he just says, yeah, I'd like to eat at the head of the table. Okay, cool. We know he's putting his challenge out there. Now we got to see what Roman does and kind of see how the Rumble unfolds to really get an idea of where things are going to go. As for Punk and Rollins, unless some magical, mystical thing happens where Austin's like, yeah, let's do it, I'm still saying I'll go with I have a 75-25, 75 that it's going to be for the title. The only way I think it wouldn't be for the title is if Damian Priest somehow cashes in before those two get into it.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. So, what was your number for Cena? Not Cena. Sorry, Cody or Rock versus Roman.
I'm at 50-50 with that. I'm still up in the air about it. I know it could go either way. I just want to see what Roman does first.
What would your number have been a week ago?
A week ago? Oh, I would have been pretty much been 100%.
Yeah, right.
That's Cody.
Crazy what a week has done, or even a day, really.
Well, yeah. Now with The Rock showing up and saying he wants to eat the head of the table, you have to kind of keep that as okay, it's 50-50. It's going to be either or.
I know this is WWE, and if he wants the match, he's probably just going to be gifted it because he's The Rock. But I would like to see this fucker have to actually enter the Royal Rumble. And if he doesn't win it, then actually have to enter Elimination Chamber. I'd like him to actually have to earn it. I don't think it's going to happen. And that's where I have a problem because I don't think Punk is being handed anything. I think he's going to have to earn it. You know, he's going to have to
I agree.
do whatever to get a match against Seth at Mania. Where I don't like the idea that Rock can just be like, okay, I'm back, and I'm going to go up against you for the Undisputed Championship. That I don't know.
No, I don't disagree with you on that. But unfortunately, that's just what happens. You know, it's like it's The Rock. We got what we wanted, so let's just do it. Let's go ahead and just set it up now. Versus, guys who are there day in, day out, busting their asses, trying to just build great TV, great stories. And yeah, is it frustrating? For sure. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Speaking of which, our buddy Jared, our group chat, who keeps trying to poke at me over the Punk stuff and how many dates he's worked, it's like, well, yeah, this is a real wrestler schedule. Meanwhile, Punk only has 4 dates. It's like, yeah, but you're not counting the fact that Punk showed up at Survivor Series and the fact he was on SmackDown and he was on NXT and he was on the NXT pay-per-view. Sorry, yeah, he was on the NXT pay-per-view. And then he was on the NXT tapings, and he was actually there last night too. He just wasn't on screen for whatever reason, which I found very interesting. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, the dude's there. It's not like it was in Chicago. It's on the West Coast. I know he performed in LA 2 days prior, but cool. If he's that into it that he's showing up even when he's not on, maybe it's a good sign.
I think it's actually good to have him there backstage NXT, whether he's on TV or not. He's a good sounding board to have, especially if the talent is willing to just sit there and pick his brain, and he's more than happy to share experiences and ideas with them. Then I think that'll help the product overall, because at this point in his career, it's time for him to start, helping to groom the next generation. I understand with AEW, that's what he was trying to do, and things just, ego got in the way, and shit happens, and everything ended up happening happening there. And now he's getting a second chance to do what he was trying to do in AEW. And I'd be kind of remiss to say he hasn't grown up. He's definitely grown from this experience, and, WWE is a different beast. So, because we all know Hunter would not put up with that crap at backstage. So it's one of those things where he's just doing his thing, and as long as it's good product, hey, I'm happy for it.
Yeah, I also don't think you'd have a bunch of boneheads going around poking the bear, constantly 24/7 trying to get the guy to go overboard. So, yeah, I don't know. Sorry, did you do yours for Punk Seth, Punk Austin? I'm assuming you're still heavily Punk Seth.
I'm definitely going to be heavy on Punk Seth for sure. It doesn't, like I said, unless some miracle of miracles happens and Austin just magically says okay, which, I mean, is he really itching for another match? Who knows? I feel like the smart move is Punk Seth, because they're both good workers. They'll put on a great match, and if Seth has to carry him a little bit just because he's not as fast as he was or whatnot, Seth can do it. So, and plus the promos leading up to that. Think about that for a second. If we get that set in stone weeks before WrestleMania, think about the promo battles these two are going to have. They're both amazing on the mic, and that's some great TV right there.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it happens. I'd love for Punk to win the Royal Rumble so that we can just get to it real early. This is who he's going for.
That's not saying that might not happen. Like that's what I said. If we get Rock, Roman set in stone, what's to say that we don't get Punk winning the Rumble and choosing Seth? Since we all know that Roman would already have his card filled. So there would be no reason for Cody to win it.
Yeah, no, I also think Cody. I mean, I get back-to-back winners. It's cool, it's rare, but I don't know. I feel Royal Rumble should try to avoid that as much as possible nowadays.
Well, another one that I would kind of I want to see win, that I would like to see win the Rumble and kind of take things to the next level, is Gunther.
Yeah,
Straight up, that is how you
I think
build
he's
a
a year away from doing that, from what I gather from online talk.
But I mean, that's how you build a heel, a strong heel who just goes out and does his thing and doesn't really need a lot of help. He's just that good in the ring that he just beats his opponents. And yeah, he's had some good matches with the Miz lately, but it's just like that's why I have a lot of respect for what Gunther's doing, because I feel like the dude can be a hard hitter, he can be a technical wrestler. He can do it all from what I can tell. And I'm really curious to see how far they're willing to push him, because he's just that talented.
I know that's the other main event match that was not main event in terms of last, but like big money match that was being talked about for Mania was him versus Lesnar. So if you get Lesnar back to versus Gunther at Mania, and then you would have to assume they're going to utilize Logan Paul in some way. I know Kevin Owens, his name was thrown out there. And at this point, you're not even touching Randy Orton or Jey Uso. Or I mean, I guess we're probably going to get the Usos against each other.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe get Orton versus Paul. I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was not happy with him winning the title, but I get the reason behind it because of just his social media presence and the fact that he's just doing all this stuff with the title. It puts it out there, but it's time to put it back on someone who's there on the regular, rather than someone who's going to show up once every 3-4 months for a pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. It'll be a match eyeballs are on though, and then is there any big matches rumored for women's? Obviously, Charlotte now being out, and Mercedes likely AEW bound possibly as soon as this week. I feel like they've lost their dream match scenario.
So yeah, looking at that, it's just I mean, you got to figure out who Rhea's. You got to figure out who's ready to give Rhea a run for her money, and it's got to be someone who can really kind of have a good match with her. The problem is lately, some of the ones I've been seeing her in, I'm like, the women they're putting her up against, they're not ready. They like last night, that was not a good match. There were a lot of bad spots, and it wasn't Rhea's fault. And they need to build somebody up for her for sure. And then Io, I mean, there's potential for, I mean, at some point, Damage Control's got to break up, right? So I don't know if they're going to turn Bailey face again or what, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the women's card in terms of just the types of matches. I mean, what's Becky Lynch doing? It's like, it's just trying to figure out where to put, with the injury to Charlotte hurt things. The fact that they haven't been able to get Mercedes Moné, or at this point, even the fact that Deonna Purrazzo is out there as a free agent, but the rumor is she's going to AEW as well, potentially.
Yeah.
Deonna Purrazzo would have been a good get for WWE. Obviously, though, I know the big thing for them, the rumor for them, is getting Julia from Stardom.
Yeah.
And that'd be a hell of a get for them, because she's a ready-made superstar, ready to go.
I also think Jade Cargill is going to play into this somehow, whether
she has to.
She's ready or not. My guess is that's your female.
The women's Rumble, maybe.
Yeah, I think she's probably going to be the one that wins it, because you can have her win it and then not have to fight too much and still get her bearings about between then and Mania. So I wouldn't be surprised
Well,
if it's her against whoever one of the champs are at that time.
I mean, in terms of strength and strength versus strength wise, physical presence, you could easily have her go at Rhea Ripley. Obviously, not win the title right off the bat, but have such a physical match that you end up seeing Rhea show her respect, like having just to put her over in that respect. So that would be a good match. I think that would be a solid, heavy hitting match that you kind of need. You don't see that much with the women's division where it's just them just beating the shit out of each other. And I think that would be a good leaping off point right there for Jade Cargill.
I think if you can have her come back or make her WWE debut and she wins the Women's Rumble, then I think that's, it's at least on screen, it makes her character look all that much more formidable.
Mm-hmm.
But then I sit here and go, you've been talking about not necessarily part timers, but maybe people that haven't necessarily paid their due. You're going to have two AEW guys. I know Punk's not really an AEW guy, but like two new people win the Rumble on the same night.
It'd be interesting, to say the least.
It'll be talked about, that's for sure.
Oh, no doubt. But I think it wouldn't be. I don't think it would. If Punk wins, it wouldn't be looked down upon potentially like it would say with Jade Cargill. But if Jade does come in and win, considering how high profile of a signing she was when she first signed, and this is her first in-ring action, it automatically kind of pushes her up there too. It kind of puts her over and pushes her to that top tier level where she's, she can come back and be like, I'm that bitch. Let what she always said in AEW.
Before we get off here, I want to throw, again, could be nothing, probably is nothing, but I want to put this out there for the people that think maybe the whole Punk versus Austin thing's gotten too quiet. So Punk does 2 matches on the holiday tour. Okay. Night 1 is in New York, December 26th. Night 2 is December 30th in LA. He went home in between. Punk apparently got new specially made ring gear for MSG, for the MSG show, and apparently it didn't fit and somehow didn't find out till the morning of the show and had to wear just black trunks. Okay. I buy that, but there was already conspiracy theorists out there going, is this an Austin hint? Because like when you look at the gear he's wearing, it's basically Stone Cold gear. And I'm like, no, guys, come on. The dude didn't get his tights properly sized. It happens. But here's the thing. He then wrestles in LA, and I could see him doing this just to get people fucking talking. And it's the same gear, the same plain black gear, no stars, no nothing. Basically looks like Austin gear. And he went home in between because he was posting on Instagram that he got his MSG thing framed. And I don't know. It's probably nothing, but I sit here and go, if there's something really wrong with your gear, you just went home where we know you have all your AEW gear. You can't tell me that someone at WWE is going, nope, no, he can't wear that. He wore that in AEW.
I mean, you never know, but I just feel like if you're going to comment on, oh, it looks like he's wearing Austin's gear, I mean, to me, that you're just grasping at straws then. Unless he makes the straight up comment of, hey, I kind of look like Stone Cold Steve Austin in this, don't I? Like just kind of putting it out there, then maybe. But I just think people want to see that so badly that they're like looking for any excuse to be like, look, this is what look who he's doing. settle down. Unless you hear talks heating up between Austin and WWE, I wouldn't put your money on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's still probably most likely. And we'll be watching the Rumble and like number 27 hits and it's Austin's music or something, and he comes out and throws Punk out of the Rumble.
I would die laughing just because, like, I'd be just stunned. I'd be like, "Holy shit! I can't believe this just happened." And I could just
crazy
laugh.
eye look on his face and goes back in and eliminates Austin and beats him down, and there's your WrestleMania build.
Pretty much.
No, I don't think that's going to happen, and I do think that's grasping at straws for sure. Anyways, though, that is going to do it for this show this evening. Any final thoughts on anything, Randy? Star Wars, wrestling, just final closing thoughts as we go off the air here.
Well, in terms of wrestling, I don't hate the main event from World's End. I thought I'm really excited to see Joe as the champion and MJF getting the well-deserved rest he needs, because that dude, he needs to be healthy. He needs to be healthy to be a factor. And I'm really excited to see if all the rumors are true that Mercedes Moné is going to be in AEW, and if she is, that really helps the product a lot. So it's a great way to start 2024 for them if they land her.
Yeah, it'd be really huge for them. Sorry, one moment. Glad I didn't do that in the mic. I didn't see the World's End pay-per-view. I've seen a few of the matches. Congrats to Samoa Joe. Awesome opportunity for him. I don't think it's going to last long, but awesome opportunity for him. MJF gets his break. The Devil storyline for me was a prime example of something that was past its welcome. And it started super strong and was very stale at the end. I didn't like the way they paid it off. It just disappointing, I know Punk going to WWE at Survivor Series killed a lot of hype for a lot of people, because there's people holding out hope that it was the biggest work ever, and he wasn't actually fired and it was him or whatever. But I look forward to heel Adam Cole whenever he's actually able to return, which it sounds like isn't yet.
Well, and see, the nice thing is now that both of them still have to recover, by the time MJF's healthy, maybe Cole will be healthy and they can go back into it. But I will say this, as much as I'm going to enjoy Joe as champion, it's not going to last long. It's time to put the belt on Swerve and let him just carry it.
Yes, absolutely. Swerve is the perfect guy to beat Joe, in my opinion. Joe would be a fantastic transitional champ. Let's get the title on Swerve. And you can have all sorts of different matchups. The Christian Cage, Adam Copeland stuff was fantastic. I love at the end of the night that Christian still found a way to walk out TNT.
I couldn't believe that. I was like, "Oh my god, are you serious?" So what I want to know is, and I hope at some point we get to figure it out, is what does he hold over Killswitch that allowed him to just be like, "Okay, here's my opportunity, take it." I want to know what he knows that just automatically just makes him turn him into just like, "Yep, whatever you want. Yes, boss. There you go."
Yeah. It was made very clear this time that there was something more to it. So, but I love when it looks like the bad guy. Everyone's talking about how on the internet his run's going to be over here, his run's going to be over there. It's time for him to give up the title. Oh, he's worse than this guy twice in a row, so obviously he's going to lose the second one. And I love when the bad guy can overcome odds and walk out a champ still. That's one of the things I loved the most about Punk's 434 run, was everybody thought it was going to end at so many different points, and he found a way to keep winning.
Yeah, I mean, we know Copeland wasn't really interested in titles, with when it came to coming to AEW, and the fact that I think it's cool that he did at least got to hold a title, even if it was brief. I do think that at some point, not anytime soon, but when they're finally, both of them, Christian and him, are ready to end it, I do think we'll see them team up one last time and maybe at least get the tag titles once before they decide to call it quits.
Maybe the Devil Group will somehow make those guys unite, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that the while off Christian is just so bloody right now that it's
you look at some of these people that WWE just said, no, we don't need you, and they're doing like Swerve and Christian. These guys are doing some of the best they've ever done on TV, and it's like it makes WWE look like they just didn't know what they were doing or didn't know how to use their character properly.
For a lot of that. So,
very true.
I'm sure Triple H would love second shots at a lot of them, and he's going to get a chance at some of them, you know. Andrade's heading back there, and there's rumors Ricky Starks might be going there, and Malachi Black desperately wants to go back there. So I think we will see some of those guys return over time, but I just don't think some of them are imminent. And frankly, I think that's good for AEW because I think they need to trim some of their roster down and become more focused on certain people. Anyways, though, that is going to do it for us tonight. Regular schedules, back at it next week. There's no Welcome to the Geek Side tomorrow. Next Monday, we will have Tonight in Haddonfield. I don't know if I will have had more time to elaborate on my Halloween TV series pitch, but if I do, maybe we will talk about it more on that episode there. Tuesday night is the Legacy of Star Wars. We are doing a watch-along for, in my opinion, the greatest motion picture ever made, Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Join us for that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be really enjoyable. And then next Wednesday, Welcome to the Geek Side. We'll probably be talking about probably the Royal Rumble, because it'll be just around the corner at that point, really. Randy, where can everybody find you at, man?
Well, on Twitter/X, I still want to call it Twitter just because I don't like the idea of X. You can find me at Giggity Giles. Also, during the football season, I am on a podcast called The Sports Brew. You can find that. You can put VA Sports Brew in your Google search and it should pop up. It's basically a bunch of us drinking, having a good time, talking sports, and doing some pop culture stuff as well. We're all big Game of Thrones fans and Star Wars fans and all that stuff, so we always have a really good time there.
And yes, as we get ready to close our first official stream of 2024, thank you to those who came out. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Even if you're not watching live, all that stuff helps the video get distributed to more people. And speaking of Game of Thrones, this is going to be a very big year on the channel for Game of Thrones, because we have House of the Dragon Season 2 coming. And if anybody watched our content coverage on House of the Dragon Season 1, you guys know we get pretty heavy with it during the time that it's on, leading up to and just after. So we're definitely going to figure out something we're going to be doing with just Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon in general leading up to it. And then obviously we have the Night of the Seven Kingdoms show, which is going to enter production this year as well. And as more writing updates come out about the Jon Snow show, which has not been greenlit yet, we will continue to cover that as well. But for Randy and everybody else at the channel, I'm Sean. Happy New Year to you all again, and we'll see you next week. Have a great evening.